Welcome to episode 215 of the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Control and Compound Financial. They teach real estate investors how to multiply their wealth using infinite banking strategies. For a complimentary wealth coaching session or to learn more, visit www.controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines. Today, I've got Jake Rosenau on the show, and Jake is actually a business partner of one of my business partners, Nick Van Dyke. So Nick Van Dyke and I hosted the Investing in the US Mastermind, and Jake is his partner on his self-storage development in Houston, Texas. So that's no small feat. In this episode, we really dug into the mindset it takes to, when you have never done this before, go out and decide that you're going to build a $20 million storage facility and you're going to raise $3 million in 60 days. So that's what Nick and Jake did. And no small feat when neither of them had ever done anything like that before. We really dug into what that was like, why they did it, and what the actual deal will look like and how they'll profit from it in the end. So if you want to know more about self-storage and how those deals work, how somebody could possibly take on such a large scale endeavor, this is definitely an episode for you. As always, I want to remind you that the GTA West REI meetup is happening monthly, and please make sure you are in the Facebook group. It is there's a link to that underneath this video or in the show notes of this episode. I'd love to see you at one of our events, so make sure you join the group and make sure you RSVP to our next one, and we'll see you there. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into episode 215 with Jake Rosenau. Hello and welcome to the Andrew Hines Real Estate Investing Podcast. I've got Jake Rosenau on the show. After coming to the Mastermind this weekend, you are here in the studio, so thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and it's a little bit surreal, to be honest. As we talked this weekend, I've been listening for quite a few years, and here we are now. I'm on it, so thank you for having me.
Nice. Yeah, so a more unlikely guest being that you're very far away. You're Ottawa based, well, close to Ottawa. Whereabouts did you say?
We're out of Brockville. Our properties are all from basically Kingston to Cornwall, so northeast.
Kingston. So Cornwall's obviously, we've talked about it a few times, like a pretty cheap place to invest.
Yes. Yeah.
As far as an entry price point.
Absolutely. All the way along. It's high cap rates, high cash flow.
Yeah. So why would you want to invest anywhere else?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But so are you like obviously we've talked off camera about this, but you and Nick are doing the self-storage development in Houston, Texas.
Yes.
And was that a natural progression from what you had done before?
I would say a little bit of yes and a little bit of no, right? It's an entirely different asset class. It's a very good asset class. Mm-hmm. There's lots of opportunity there. But coming from the ground up, right? When you start with residential real estate, like many people on your podcast, right? You start with flips and BRRRRs and conversions and everything else. So yeah, we were looking to pivot, and it was a great opportunity to be presented with the chance to do that.
Yeah, the thing I like about this, and for context for those who aren't following, so Nick Van Dyke's been on the show a couple of times, once not that long ago. I think it was episode 202. We talked about the self-storage development. Big numbers there, right? Like we're talking over $20 million final valuation.
Yep. You
guys pulled the trigger on this when?
I want to say August, July.
So just
July.
This past August.
Yes. Yep.
So you pulled the trigger. You guys had like 30 or 60 days to raise a couple $1 million or $8 million or something like that.
3.1.
You needed 3.1 in 90 days or 60 days.
Just about. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that's ballsy.
That was ballsy.
So yeah. When you guys decided you were going to go ahead with this, because that's pretty much the total capital raise for you.
Yes.
What was going through your head at that time saying, yeah, I know a few people with some money, or I know a couple people who take a big chunk of that? Like, what was the thought process at that point?
Big gulps.
Just big gulps? Well, sink or swim?
Yeah, it was like, well, now we've got to do it, right? We were talking about it. We had kind of gone back and forth with some ideas and hypotheticals and, soft commitments and, hey, I should have this many people interested in everything else. But when it comes down to it, you don't have a deal until you have a deal, right? So yeah. We were talking with, I know that Nick was talking about his coach, Joe, and he's a partner on our deal now. And one of his biggest things was always, are you interested or are you committed? Mm-hmm. So as soon as we decided that, no, we're actually committed and not just interested in the self-storage, it was, okay, then let's do the deal. Let's go and let's figure it out later.
That's not like, oh, $1 million or like,
Yeah.
that's like, well, obviously there's two of you. So did you say like $1.5 million each, or just like whoever gets there first, or however we get it done?
To be honest, it was, let's just get it done. Right. I mean, we had my background in finance was, hey, I may have some people that might be interested in it. Right. And, Nick's background in JVing and raising money for years that he's been successful at.
Yeah, he doesn't really get into that too much when he comes on, but yeah, so he's been JVing a bit. I know he's obviously been sharing about his track record for quite some time.
He's done a very good job.
Yeah, so his Instagram following is small, but from the sounds of it, he's made a lot of connections through there that have ultimately ended up becoming investors.
Solid. Yeah, absolutely.
That's crazy to think that. Like, I think a lot of people underestimate that. Like, even if you have only a few hundred followers, there's money there. Like, there's people that would invest with you, and I don't think a lot of us maybe are thinking about that as much as we could be thinking
Absolutely.
about it.
Yep.
Okay, so you pull the trigger on that. So obviously you're committed.
Yes.
What was the negative outcome if you didn't deliver? What if you came up with 2.5 and not 3?
Well, I mean, we were in the advantageous position to be able to close on the property with far less than 3.1. So we really were able to raise about 2/3 of it in that amount of time, and then we kind of were able to filter in the rest of it because there's obviously soft costs involved on top of just the purchase price.
Yeah, as far as Nick has described it to me, it's like $2 million sort of covers what you need, and then you have an extra $1 million to cover interest payments and returns to the lenders and all that stuff.
Extra design fees, permit costs, things like that.
Yeah, all the soft stuff. So hypothetically, you're done raising for this project.
Hypothetically, we're done raising for this project.
And you're hoping that stays true.
Yes, and the way that we've been able to structure it, we have opportunity to add more should we need more.
Yeah. Okay. So you have the ability. Nick was explaining this weekend. The whole you guys have basically set it up that 70% of the equity still remains with you as the general partners of the deal. So you guys have done the GPLP structure. Yes. 30% of your shares are the limited partner shares, which you've sold out.
Yes, exactly that. It's
actually, you haven't even fully sold out the 30, right?
Yeah, we're at about 27, and
yeah.
we only needed 27 in order to get us to that 3.1.
So you can flex for a few more if you need.
Exactly.
Like can you add 10 more if you want to?
If we needed it, there's still.
Would there be amendments to your partnership documents that you'd have to do? Yes. But I guess every time, like, because you guys are bringing in a strategic partner on your deal, they're your sponsor, is that right?
Yes, essentially somebody that has 150% of our construction loan value in a net worth plus $2 to $3 million in cash.
$2 to $3 million in cash. How does that conversation go? Like, I mean, I get it. Like, you get in a conversation with somebody, you see that they're driving a Ferrari, and you start making some assumptions. What do you do for a living? And then you kind of ask a couple of related questions, and you get a vibe that it's there, because you don't really want to come right out and say, "Hey, do you have $3 million in cash?" And or stocks work too.
It's just got to be outside. The value has to be outside of
that project.
Yeah, essentially.
But you can't have it tied up in real estate because that's not liquid.
Right.
So it could be anything, paper investments kind of thing.
Yes. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, so you can make some assumptions and figure that, and then net worth wise, also some educated assumptions, and you'll probably have a good idea.
Yeah.
So for you guys, who you found it? Were you saying in Vegas?
Well, we were at the mastermind in Vegas with our partner. He was hosting a large self-storage mastermind for a couple of days, and it just came up that we're in a room with people that are all like-minded and going in the same direction and interested in the same asset class. Just keep talking, and you start meeting people, and before you know it, we had found somebody that was somewhat interested, and we just kind of nurtured that relationship and built on it, and we're just open and honest about our direction and what we were hoping for and looking to achieve long term.
So it really is a matter of getting out there. Like, you guys, first off, you committed. Second off, you got out there and did it. It wasn't a matter. Yeah, I like that differentiation, the interested or committed.
Yeah, and you know what? At first I didn't really recognize it, I think, as much as in terms of the value that actually brings. And the more I think about it, that's the most common thing and the easiest thing to look at. You have so many people that want to get into real estate. You have so many people that talk about getting into real estate, wishing they got into real estate. You talk to a lot of people, right? And the people don't pull the trigger. They're interested, but they're not committed, right? And going back to this, it was like, what are we going to do to change? I had a great paying T4 job that was commission based. I got time freedom from it. I could make my own schedule, financial freedom. It paid really well for the effort that I put in. I like to help people, so it gave me that purpose freedom at the same time. And what was it going to take to make me leave that? Because I had also got into the residential real estate while doing that job, right?
So you have left it.
I have left it.
Which job was this?
I was a financial planner with a bank in Canada, and 15-year history with them, dealing with wealth and retirement planning.
Another whole angle. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your access like to your clients from when you were doing financial planning? Is it like a non-compete for X number of time?
Yeah. That's a tough one to kind of navigate, right? The really nice part about it is that I built some really great relationships, right?
Yeah.
You build those in-depth relationships because you're having those conversations that are not easy all the time, right? The ones that are close to people's hearts. And I've built a relationship with them on a personal level too. So even though I'm not there, we still talk. People still want your personal email. They want to stay in touch. They follow my wife on Facebook, Instagram. They follow me.
So they find out about this stuff.
They find out about it. They ask questions.
And they approach you, then is
free game, I think.
Free game, I think. That works out. It would be very strange if one of the banks were to say, hey, Jake, don't deal with this person, and then you have to tell that person, yeah, the bank's saying I can't deal with you. That would probably upset them. So I don't think that the bank's likely to take that position. We
legitimately, and I say we because my wife and I manage the same book of clients actually at the bank. We were a partnership. We managed it all together, and she was just talking with one of our clients who she was advising that I had moved on, right? Hadn't spoke to him in a couple of months. He got mad at her that I did not pitch this deal to him. He's a real estate investor himself. Yeah. He invests in rental properties and flips and things like that. And he was actually mad that I did not bring it up. I can't do that while I'm employed, but
Yeah. Well, you could talk about what you're doing, but I mean, you can't offer it as an investment, I suppose. Right. Yeah, that's a tricky one. How long have you been away from the job?
Yeah, it's been 6 months, 5-6 months now.
6 months. So your monthly incomes now, is it just based on the rental properties that you have? Or
yeah, I've left the job. I've gone in on our real estate portfolio, as well as now the NVDR development self-storage portfolio. Luckily, I do have my partner, who's my wife, is still at work and able to help us out a little bit and supplement the income. So
yeah, gotcha. That's a good way of doing it. So I guess did you and your wife meet in the job?
Yeah. So we had met years ago at events and kind of just stayed close and ended up working in the same environment, close to the same cities, and just kind of joined our forces. Instead of working from the same household but kind of against each other, we decided to partner up and build something even bigger together.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that. When two people come together, I feel like you can create more than 2 times the results.
Absolutely.
Right. There's a bit of an exponential growth there, I think. So what was your background before the financial planning? Like you said 15 years?
15 years.
So you went to university, got a degree, went straight into a commission-based job?
Yeah. Not quite. Don't get me too started there. I do have a book coming out that I'm talking about a lot of this, and being able to kind of escape the rat race and break free of the mold of your T4 and work till you're 65 and live for the next 8 to 10 years on average, right? But went to university, was aiming to get, that teacher job, was aiming to get, those nice, comfortable summers off, March breaks, Christmas holidays, good pay, come home with enough time to spend with your family and go to sleep and repeat, right? Decided midway through, or in my 3rd year, that university was not for me. I did not want to be a teacher anymore. Freaked out. Did some interest tests. They didn't interest me at all afterwards. Any findings there, and went to college, tried to do it all over again. Got into subdivision design and site development, and ended up in the bank.
Interesting.
So yeah, they're all correlated, right? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that now. Like I've said this many times, I don't want my son to go to university. I mean, as it is right now, and he's only 14 months old, but I just don't see a point. I think that the real world skills, the people I see, like, Nick, for example, Matt Pichet, actually Nick did a college diploma, I believe.
He's got an engineering background, but it works and helps us today.
Matt Pichet, for instance, did not do post-secondary, straight into carpentry. Like, guy crushes. Absolutely, like multi-million-dollar net income.
Yes, killing it.
It's not the determining factor. In fact, you'd probably find more of a inverse correlation. Like the more educated, the less money, to a degree. Like there's a diminishing return, right? For a while, it adds more and then it starts diminishing. So big thing is getting around hustlers. And I would rather, have my son apprentice under somebody who's crushing it, doing something he thought was cool. And then
getting into those rooms, right?
Get in those rooms. Like, yeah, it's just such a different perspective. It's going to be a changing world. And part of the reason why I softened up my position on student rentals a bit is I think institutionalized education is going to, out of necessity, need to change. Maybe I'm wrong. Like it's just a vulnerability is how I look at it.
You're not wrong. That's 100% the truth. And, it was designed to create people to get into labor positions, right?
Yeah, exactly. Jobs, like people who will just work a job until they're 65 or whatever, or live 10 to 13 more years. And then that's it.
That's right.
Yeah, like that's Matt, again, not to bring up Matt multiple times, but he just posted this yesterday. I reposted it, like articulating exactly that.
That's exactly
like, figure it out, guys.
And it's dangled in front of you with, hey, here's this really great salary. We're going to pay you 2 weeks in advance, right? To just come here and give up your time.
Give up your time. Yeah, you got to get out of that trading time for money. But I mean, so where you're at right now, how are you focusing right now? Because your current deal, most of the pieces are put together. And this is one of the things I like the best, because you've got something that is worth 20 to 22 million when you're done as per appraisal, and you're figuring 13 to 15 million to build it.
Yep. Absolutely.
So there's anywhere from $5 to $7 million equity in there.
And it's going to take 24 to 36 months.
24 to 36 months from when you started.
Yes.
So once construction starts, how long?
10 to 12 months. We're hopeful maybe even less. Like the nice part about self-storage, and not to take away from residential or developing residential stuff, we have one toilet, maybe two that we got to worry about. Everything else comes down to steel, asphalt, concrete. Really, right? It's not sexy, but it's consistent.
Oh, I like it. So this is one of the topics we covered at the mastermind, and just looking at how the demand for that. If you look at what it costs to build versus what it can yield on a per square foot basis, I guess.
Absolutely.
Is it yielding like comparable rent to what a multifamily building does on a per square foot basis?
It would be close. I think it's about 3 times the equity of multifamily. In terms of when we look at our syndication, we're holding 70% of it, not giving up 70% of it.
Yeah, versus if you were doing it on a multifamily, it'd probably be the other way around. You guys would keep a tiny sliver.
Yep. And then you look at construction costs, and it's like half, right?
So it costs half.
Yeah.
So if you built 100,000 square feet in multifamily, what's that? Maybe 100 units.
Sure.
And this is more than 100 units probably, right?
Well, we're looking at about our preliminary, we're just over 700. I think we ended up net with a few changes that we made. We're like pushing high 600s. 600 units. Yeah, 680, 685.
And each one of those units is going to rent for what, 150 to $200, something like that.
Yep.
So we'd have to really, look at those numbers a few different ways, but are there any other important kind of ways you can look at it and say how it was obviously better to you than going at multifamily development?
Well, we're in Ontario, right? So I think that's the first part. Being the landlord in Ontario is very difficult. To be able to acquire properties or build properties and actually have and own control of your own property, right? Our rules and our laws are obviously in favor of our tenants than they are for us.
Yeah, I don't think it's a fantastic place to grow, all other things considered, right? All other things held constant. If you just look at the laws, you probably want to grow somewhere else. Of course, if you find a smoking deal here, you can still make it work, right?
100%. And we're very much all in on the self-storage side of things, but we would say that if an opportunity presents itself in front of us that you can't say no to, you're not going to say no to it.
Yeah, I think I definitely think that it's worth keeping an open mind no matter what. And I'm the same way. I'm focused in the US right now, but I think, as things as more opportunities become available here in Ontario, and it looks like the market's starting to stabilize. So maybe this is the bottom, maybe it's not. I don't know. I think that there might be potentially some further fall to happen, but there could be some really great deals here. There already are.
There's going to be even more coming if interest rates keep going up, right? Wait till renewal time, and these values are overvalued.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that all works out. So you guys have sliced up that pie many different ways. What I was really getting at is if like if you could have done a multifamily in Houston, Texas. So Houston's where you chose, and we'll get into why. But if you could have done a multifamily or a self-storage, like what do you take away? Like, of course, there's way less infrastructure. There's way less to maintain, less decisions. You're not deciding on tile and backsplashes and all that stuff.
That's right. As much as sometimes it's fun to make those decisions. No, it's very straightforward, right? How many units can we get into this space based off of our feasibility study and what the demand is, right? That's the very first thing that you do is we schedule the feasibility study and then take a look at it from there. What's the average income? What's the need? What's the demand? What sizes are popular in the current existing facilities? And what are they lacking, right? We're developing Class A, large scale facilities that are like a boutique hotel, right? Like you show up front and they're beautiful. So it's not your mom and pop gated chain link fence, gravel road, dark.
No, yeah, you're doing Class A, like really nice asphalt, paved. It looks good. Well, it's obviously brand new, so it's going to be well maintained.
Yep. Trying to attract the big players.
Yeah, and you guys are planning to keep it.
Yes.
Would you ever sell any of them?
Well, that's always up in the air, right? It's the same thing as here. If you've got any real estate, if somebody's going to come willing to give you a price that's, significant, you're going to entertain it.
Okay, so let's get into how it's being broken up. So you guys had to bring in a sponsor, and this is somebody that can guarantee the mortgage. That's the big thing if you want to get construction financing. Yes. So you didn't need them right away, but you needed them at some point.
We needed them at some point before applying for the loan.
Okay, so then when you found them, you don't have to tell exactly what you gave them, but like what are you typically looking at to give a sponsor? Like what would be a kind of a going rate?
Going rate could be, like finding contractors, right? You don't want to take the lowest all the time. You don't want to take the highest. You got to find somebody that's going to be able to work with you and fit with you, right? We wanted the ability to grow with our sponsor, but going rate is going to be anywhere from 5 to 15%
of the deal.
Yeah, maybe 20.
Maybe 20, and they don't have to come in with any actual money.
Right. In our situation, our sponsor believed in our deal and has also purchased a share in our
some
deal
of the
as well.
limited partnership.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Very cool.
Encouraging to know that we have a good product because they also do it themselves.
And then you have another partner that you brought in, sort of not as a financial partner, but as like a sort of a mentor or part of the deal.
Yep. The legacy team and Joe Evangelisti, Brian Brogan, those guys over there, they've got 10, 12 deals going and a couple of joint ventures, including ours. Okay,
so what's the reason to bring them into the deal, and if you're comfortable sharing or even just giving a ballpark of what that costs you to have them in the deal, tell me about it.
Well, I don't want to necessarily look at it as costly because it's actually priceless to have them. It's as cliche as it sounds. They've been around, right? They've done it. They've got, like I said, 12 of them, I think, and they started prior to COVID, right? So they've been through some really bad times, experienced them themselves. And that knowledge and being able to leverage that knowledge and that experience is huge. So, again, paying somebody that's been there, we're giving up, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, or 10 to 15, right?
So 10 to 15 on that.
On the GP side again.
And what do you and Nick hope to each retain out of the deal, by the time all is said and done and it's the end of the bill?
As much as possible, but I think we're looking at 30 to 40.
30 to 40 between the two of you to keep. Okay. Which isn't nothing when you're looking at 5 to 7 million and
it's not nothing
in equity.
There's a ton of opportunity and the rate of return on the limited partnership side of things, we're looking at a minimum. It's all hypothetical at this point, but based off of what our partners have seen, we're looking at anything from a return of 15 to 25%.
15 to 25% for the people who've bought into it.
Yes.
That's a cool deal, man.
You're also going to retain equity in that deal going forward. We're keeping them on.
And you guys have you financially invested in the deal as well?
Yes, Nick and I both. Well, Nick's family, my family, his wife and I, and my wife, we're all into it personally as well. So,
very, very cool deal. I think most people would hear this and be like, "What? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Go back to your duplexes.
Yeah. It's big and it's scary, man. But it's a great asset class as a whole.
What is that? So say you had 10% of it on the low end. I know you're talking more than that. If it was 10% and there's 7 million in equity, that's 700 G's in equity added to your net worth from one deal, which I would think, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't occupying every minute of your time anymore.
It's not currently, this specific deal is not, no, occupying 100% of our time. We're also always looking at deal 2, 3, and 4, right?
Yeah. So what are you doing right now to maintain this? Is it just the odd meeting? I mean, because everything's sort of like, who's handling quarterbacking all the soft cost process? Like, did you just hire a consultant that's just doing everything?
Yeah, and then that's part of obviously the partners that we've brought on.
So Joe and them, they'll give direction to the consultants.
Well, it's us. Nick and I are on obviously our weekly calls. We're talking every single day about it, but we're managing essentially a GC that's managing the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And when you say GC, they're sort of doing the.
Yeah, he's quarterbacking the design team.
Yeah, the design.
Engineering.
Do you have designs for your site? Like you have a site plan, you have all that stuff done.
Everything's
Is
completed.
it submitted?
We've got our submitted for permits. It's been submitted for about a month now.
Oh, so you have the full package done.
Yeah, we're expecting it back. I want to say middle of the end of this month, middle of next month.
Did they make you do everything like noise studies, sound studies, light studies, all that stuff? Or
yeah, there were certain studies involved. They were really mainly concerned about
shadows. Sorry, shadow study was what I meant to say.
Shadow study. Yeah, no, they were more concerned about like the water tables and things like that.
They get flooding.
Yeah,
Okay.
We had flood plains. We had to change our design a little bit, rotate some of our buildings. It helped with obviously our detention pond. That was another thing. They had some changes in that last minute.
Do you have to have a stormwater detention?
Yes, it's taken up like 3.5, nearly 4 acres of our 7.5 acre site.
And that's just so you're not draining onto the roadway or onto a neighbor's property or something like that. Yeah.
And I mean, the nice part about Houston specifically is it's zoned by right. You can pretty well put whatever you want up wherever you want. And like I was telling you this weekend, it's, we're backing up against a huge residential neighborhood and people don't want to drive to their self-storage facility. So we have a huge demand in the area, and it's close, right? Within a tight area. And just the viewability of the site is there as well, right?
That's pretty cool. So so zone by right, like explain what that actually means.
Yeah, so it's not, you're looking to do a conversion on a property here, right? And you've got to go to the city and you've got to apply for minor variance and you've got to go through and make sure that all the neighbors agree that this is okay and that they're comfortable with it. We didn't have to jump through any hoops zoning wise. We didn't have to go to the city, say we're looking to do a self-storage facility. Will you?
So there was no pre-consultation meeting, nothing like that? Or did you do a consultation with the city?
We did not. The nice benefit too was we bought a property that was shovel ready, and a lot of detail, the minor details, the beginning details of that has already been completed.
So explain how did that happen? How were you able to buy a shovel ready property?
Yeah, so that came through our GPs, our general partner that we brought on, Joe Evangelisti, his team, Legacy, they've done it.
So they already had this in the pipeline.
They had some of it, some of them available to us, and
so they had a handful of deals, and this was one of the ones in there. And you guys happened to be speaking with them, and then they said this was happening, and you guys jumped on it. Is that?
They said we have a deal, we have a property. They didn't have the time for it at the time, or whatever their situation was, and
somebody had to go out and raise $3 million on it.
Nick's coming saying, "Hey, there's this deal." We ran the numbers extensively, and spent a couple of days on it, and said, "Yeah, let's go."
I remember Nick talking about feasibility studies. Obviously, somebody has to evaluate what the demand for storage is in a certain area.
Yes.
So you hire somebody that does those type of feasibility studies.
Yeah.
And what was the feedback about that area?
So there is a large demand in Houston within only a 2.5 mile radius, and typically they'll look at 3 and 4 mile radiuses, but we actually went more conservative with a 2.5 mile radius, and we had like a demand of over 300,000 square feet within 2.5 miles. We're developing 100,000. That really reduced our risk, right?
Yeah, so you're underserving the area. Maybe you'll buy somewhere else in the area and build more.
That's always on the table, right? It's just got to find the lot.
Yeah, the cool thing with the size of what you're doing is, and I know I've talked to you guys, I have the inside scoop, like you're hiring professional management when you're done. That's the plan. And they'll do everything, maintenance, like you don't need to go find your handyman in the area.
That's right.
Do you already have, well, I mean, I'm guessing Joe and those guys have connections to people already that would manage it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some big players in the US when it comes to the self-storage space. Some of the big REITs out there, you're going to see some of those returns coming up here now into March on how they did last year, and I think that everybody will be quite happy with that. But yeah, the big players, they're looking for these Class A facilities, right? They don't want.
And is there like a standardized, like you have key coded entries, like, and your designers knew how to design Class A for current standards, like what everybody's looking for. So you found somebody that this is what they do. They design storage.
Yep.
Yeah, because you don't want to get into that. Oh, well, is this big enough for this unit?
Enough, or is this enough? No, these guys,
they know everything.
We work with an excellent team, and this is not their first rodeo. The guy that's actually overseeing things, Barry, he's got 25 plus years in the space.
Super uncomfortable position that you guys put yourself in.
Yeah, surround yourself, right? And it's who's your tribe. That's the tagline these days, right? Is who's your tribe and who are you surrounding yourself with?
So one of the great takeaways, like from hearing Joe speak on the weekend at the mastermind, was just him talking about how there's that ladder and how you'll have results that are under what you're putting in. So if you're performing great, you're getting good results. If you're performing good, you're getting poor results, and so on, and all the way up to what, extraordinary. So you guys put yourself, and he talked about how at the top you're just like, you're seeking uncomfortable. Like, how comfortable are you? I guess we all have to ask ourselves that. If we're that comfortable, are we really pushing it? Are we really going after it?
Right. And I think that's the thing with Nick and I now, and the evolution of our conversations. In the beginning, it was like super uncomfortable. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what are we doing now? And where's the next steps that we can make ourselves uncomfortable again, right?
I think you guys should be doing 3 more right now and see if that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, our goal is to get 2 more going this year. So we'll see. We're looking at a few things and have a few irons in the fire, right? So
yeah, that's awesome. Like, it's really exciting stuff. And obviously your first one, you would do it differently. Like, once you guys know the ropes, know the contacts you work with, like, how many more would you bring Joe in for? Like, or would you guys just continuously do that and maybe they work it out with you later on to take a slightly smaller piece?
Yeah, we've had this conversation too. I think as time goes on, it's only a natural progression that you can kind of eliminate some of that.
Yeah. You probably had those conversations with him too.
We've had those conversations with that whole team. We were in Tulum, Mexico a month ago, and we're sitting out on this massive yacht and just having conversations of where things are going. And where we're headed and what our plans are. And, they were the ones saying, well, yeah, by the time you guys do the next couple, you're not going to need us. And that's okay. Right. And they're just as happy to see us fly the nest too.
And I've had the same conversations with the guy I partnered with on my first one in Florida. I partnered with him for a foot in the door with the contractor. And I was very upfront with him. I'm like, look, I am going to need to do these on my own, but I'm happy to do one together. I think it could be a real win-win, build a relationship, I'd still love for you to help me out as a realtor, kind of thing. And
I think that's very smart. I mean, that's how you learn, right? If you can't go into things blind and expect to be able to come out with perfect results every time.
Yeah, like I looked at it and I could have gone out and just tried to call up GCs and find one, but I wanted to find one that would, if they weren't connected to anybody I knew, then they might be more likely to kind of just say, well, I don't know him from Adam. Just keep his deposit and string him along, right? Like, I wanted solid connections of people with things to lose. And I think, with what you guys did, you picked somebody who had an established brand, isn't going to do anything silly, and worked with them. So
I think that's a huge thing is you stand by it, is you want to pick somebody that has something to lose, right? Whether it's credibility, whether it's money, whether it's whatever, that way that you're going to get the best out of them.
Like, I worked with a lender that totally did shady stuff, and they were connected to the RIA. Like, not shady, but they were extremely disappointing. And, I was talking to one of the organizers of the event the next time at the RIA, and I was asking him about financing. I'm like, yeah, who else can you recommend? He's like, if you talk to these guys. I'm like, no, we're not talking to those guys. Been down that road. Right. They were not helpful. Like, word gets out if people don't perform. And, I think back to it. I'm like, there's a reason they needed to sponsor the RIA, and just the people at the RIA weren't just talking about them, right? Like, they're there, and it is a small world. So, I'd much prefer one that didn't need to sponsor. They were just, they come to the event. Oh, hey, I helped out Jim and I helped out Bob, and okay, great. Yeah. So I think it's super smart. Like, 'cause like, how much have you learned in the last 6 to 8 months?
Oh man, it's look, I couldn't even give you a scale. It's astronomical, the things that I've learned from just get go to, you know, where we're at today. And obviously I've been part of and have completed many different projects of different types along the way in our experiences with multifamilies and single families, etc. But like, it's Joe's line is turning decades into days. And when you bring on somebody that has been there, done that, you're able to learn from their mistakes without having to make them yourselves and really get tied up in the weeds, right? You're able to, okay, that doesn't work, that hasn't worked, this is what we do, and this is the method to success.
Oh yeah, I love it. So tell me about the stuff before that. Like, obviously you were doing your own rental properties. That must have been hard to be a financial planner and tell people to go into that stuff. You're like, meanwhile you're making, you know, 100% on your money in real estate. Those days are sort of gone to a degree, it seems. But how did you handle that sort of thing? Were you always talking about real estate to your clients, or were you saying, well, if it's not real estate, then I guess it's this?
Yeah, not quite. But you know, my wife and I talk about this all the time, because you go into these appointments and you're talking like, yep, this is what I do on the side. And, you know, their eyes go big. And a lot of people have maybe one property, right? And they're like, yeah, I'm into real estate. I've got a property. Single family, they've got it rented, whatever. Or they've just always gone the investment route. And that's okay too. But I think as time went on and I got deeper and deeper and deeper into the real estate game, it was like becoming, I got to be careful how I say it, but it's a piss off to not have a product that is going to be this stable and steady and consistent to provide to them as what I'm receiving. And, you know, it's like, unfortunately, you've got to either ride the wave of traditional markets, or you've got to take a GIC and just die a slow death, because inflation's going to eat your returns.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff has got management fees on it too. If you're into the funds and stuff, it's tough to provide them. Like, even on the private equity side, there's stuff out there that's yielding well over 10%, but it's not stuff that financial planners have access to typically.
And that's it, right? It's unfortunately, yeah. And this is something that we can talk about further, but you've got the fund managers that are investing in the things that the bankers are telling you not to invest in, right? It's, oh, that's too risky. Do you really want to take your chance? But then look at a REIT. What's the REIT invest in? The exact same things that we're investing in. But here you go. We'll charge you a management fee, and you can have a small piece of this pie instead of being able to be one of 27 in a self-storage deal.
Like, did you direct clients directly into REITs, or was it usually funds, like mutual funds and stuff?
We had real estate funds. But again, you know, some of the results, they're just not there. They're not anything comparable to what you or I are making.
But and even like the private equity like companies that are out there, I'm not going to name drop right now, but you know, they're floating around and they're crushing, like, and they're giving people some big returns.
You're getting anywhere from 12 to 15 or more.
Yeah, there are companies that are giving people 15 a year or more. Absolutely. 10% a year is like probably a starting point for discussion with a lot of them,
especially right now.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's like the opportunities are out there, and it's just, for whatever reason, like, you know, the regulators don't like these private equity. Too risky, right? Yeah, too risky. It doesn't fit into that massive low return.
Yes. Slow cooker, right? You're never going to burn your food, and you're never going to undercook it. It's just going to come out to be okay.
That must have been hard, man. I would find that hard to do that. You know, you have to kind of bite your tongue a little bit. You
definitely do. And I mean, let's face it, real estate's not for everyone, right? I've been in meetings and talked to people where they're like, yeah, I used to have multiple properties, and it's not for me.
Yeah. I think it's more the how they do it, but they convince themselves it's not for them. But you're not there to change their minds, nor will you, right? You're never going to change somebody's mind against their will.
That's right. And, you know, it all comes down to knowledge, right? And unfortunately, in education, and the right education, because we talked about the school system being a little bit different, unless you're in Florida and listening to DeSantis now. But the right education and being fed some of the right information, that can help drastically change your outlook on things. And all of a sudden, what I think is risky is not as risky, right?
That's the whole knowledge mitigates risk thing.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree with that more. Like, for somebody, say like me, who's never done self-storage, to just go and try and do it by myself without partnering in with somebody who had done it would be foolish. Or at least having somebody who had done it holding my hand.
That's right. Or gone into your real estate development down there.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would be risky. Like that, but I can mitigate that risk by working with somebody who, to them, it's easy. To them, it's like, oh, that's simple as raising the money. Yeah.
That's right. You've got the money and they've got the know-how, and you make a deal happen, or vice versa. Like,
yeah, that's so. In this case, you guys are sort of the money partner in the deal.
we make the connections.
You just made the connections. Yeah, right. Yep. You brought it in. All right, so you're thinking 2 more this year. It's kind of the natural growth pattern, and you'll keep scaling it from there.
Yep. And it was very interesting because, obviously Nick and I talk enough, being family members and all, but our text to each other on New Year's Day was like the exact same thing. It's like, okay, our goal for this year was this and this, and it was the exact same. So it's nice to be on the exact same page. We're 2 entirely different people, but have very much of the same vision and goals for achievement for our families and our legacy.
Yeah. How long have you and Nick known each other?
I don't want to date myself here. I probably going on, well, it's 15 plus. I don't know if it's 20 years, but it's 15 plus.
Yeah. Okay. So he's married to your sister.
He is married to my sister. Yeah.
And so they've been together a long time. I never asked him how long they've been married.
I don't know how much I'm allowed to tell you here today, but yeah, something about a Boston cream donut, I think, had something to do with it. But yeah, no, my sister worked at Tim Hortons long ago, so that's the standing joke, right? Is she would have a coffee ready for him and this and that. But no, they've known each other a long time. They've been together a very long time. They got a great family.
And you guys didn't have any worries about mixing family and business this way?
You know what? I think it comes down again to communication, right? Everything's just honest, open communication. We're gonna not see eye to eye, and that's the nature of things. And I think that's the best part of it, actually, is that neither of us are afraid to speak our mind to each other, right? And this is our views, and okay, let's figure it out now.
Yeah, I think I know Nick's got a thick skin if he can work with me. So
no, that's it, right? I mean, hey, we played hockey together, so we have a good relationship, and obviously my wife and my sister get along very, very great, very well, and I'm thankful for that. And we just have a clear vision together, right, on where we want to go. So at the end of the day, that's what we want. That's what we're trying to achieve. And if we're not working towards that, then what are we doing?
All right, so tell me about the goal. Like, is there a grand vision for your life that you're trying to achieve? What was your goal setting process, and how did what you've done so far fit into it?
Yeah, I think as a family, we have our own goal of where NVDR is going to go. We each have our own individual family goals, of course, but we just want to be able to have a nice, lasting legacy of some capacity for our kids and our kids' kids and our, and so on down the line.
So a big storage portfolio fits the bill?
Yeah, absolutely. Something that's going to continue to raise or provide cash flow to alleviate concerns. I mean, money isn't everything, but it gives you options, right? Money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys you the opportunity to make your own decisions, right? And buy you what you need.
Yeah, having just the time to think. Even just like the time, like so that on Sunday, you can truly just not do anything and think and reflect.
Right. Goal, journal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Plan.
Just having that time. How many people don't have that time, especially once you bring kids into the mix? If you have 2 working parents and kids, now it's like every last minute of every day is either, cleaning, preparing, whatever.
You know it all too well, right? And it's exactly that. You've got, everybody has the same 24 hours, the same 168 in a week. Like, we all have the same time, and it comes down to priorities. I mean, yes, you really want to watch Netflix, but let's make sure that you're scheduling that time for Netflix and make sure you're getting the things that are paying your bills and you're making those big decisions before you're sitting down to watch your episode, right?
Yeah. So how are you time blocking your weeks now that you don't work? Because that can be very difficult. You go from a structured 9-to-5 job. Yeah. I've been self-employed. One of the biggest struggles, being self-employed is nobody's checking to see that I showed up at 9 a.m.
100%. That's exactly it. The job that I held previous was more of a build your own schedule sort of thing, right?
That's true. You're commission based, right?
Yeah. So
it helps.
Having my daughter actually made me even more scheduled because it got me to the gym earlier. It got me into the office earlier. I got out of the office early in order to go to a project that we were working on. We did, BRRRRs and conversions during the time that my wife was on mat leave, trying to be home and being a decent husband and a decent father at the time while getting it all done. You really have to be strategic in your scheduling. I was a very strategic scheduler when I was employed. And, we talk about this all the time. ever since in the beginning, ever since that I left my position and became an entrepreneur, it was like, I'm terrible at running my schedule right now. I don't know why, but it's getting back to basics, and I utilize Google Calendars now, and I plug in everything, right? Like my gym time is in there, you know, your family time is in there, your time for journaling and goal planning and everything else is in there. We have it down to as far as I think like blocking off lunches and dinners and date nights, and just get it in there ahead of time, because I'm a huge proponent in, if you're not planning, life is going to plan for you, and you'll always just be busy doing something if you don't take control of your schedule.
Yeah, that's so true. I like that you pointed it out. Like you go when you were so rigid, so structured when you had the job, and now it's all of a sudden it's like for some reason you fall into bad habits, and then you have to build yourself back out of it.
You wake up, you're not leaving the house. Like you got nowhere else to go, but then you're looking at the laundry, or you're looking at the dirt in the corner, and you're like, I could be doing something else. But you know, you've got to schedule that time. Yeah, you can still clean the house, you can still take care of whatever you need to do, but you got to get your job done first. And your job is either we got to get on this call and design this massive self-storage facility, or we've got to be raising funds and we've got to be out making connections, right? Being
uncomfortable, I think it's, you know, just pushes you. It probably helps you prioritize what you got to do in a week. But yeah, you don't want to forget. You don't want to miss that date night. You don't want to do those things, right? Like if you just throw yourself into these situations where you got to sink or swim, like you'll swim, but at what cost? So that the balance part is tricky, and that's where I think like more of a broad goal setting, where you have your categories of your life that you're trying to that you set goals in each of them, and then trying to reach those goals simultaneously, and hopefully it's exciting enough that it doesn't feel like we're trying to make all that work.
Well, that's exactly it, right? I've got our family goals, I've got our financial goals, I've got our health goals drawn up, and you know, when you have these crystal clear goals, it's very easy to make your decisions, because is this going to help or harm my goal?
Yeah, exactly. Everything gets weighed against your goals. That's the way it needs to be. How old's your daughter?
She just turned 3 in November, so nearly 3.5.
And are you guys thinking more maybe, or is that?
No. Good timing to ask that question. No.
All done?
Yep. All done. No, she's a gem. She's literally like, well, sorry, Laura, but she's the light of my life. Like very entertaining. She's a very good girl. Keeps me on my toes. Very happy all the time. So, you know, every day that you get to see your family or whatever, and you tie it to your goal of, you know, this is what we're doing it for, right? Is to be able to enjoy our families and enjoy doing the things that we want to do together, because you can't get time back. And the fact that, you know, you started this podcast in what, 2019? Late 2018?
2019, yeah, February 15th.
Okay. And where has time gone? My daughter was born in November of 2019, and it's like, fast forward, you're 3 years in, and you're like, man, you can't get the time back.
Yeah. Well, I can't believe it's been 4 years since doing this. Yeah. My wife and I got married that year. I'm like, 4 years?
Wild, eh?
The lockdowns and all that stuff really compressed time. Yeah. It just made things fly somehow.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But it's just like, you know, you blink and time's gone. You know, you could go to the casino, lose a bunch of money and make it back the next day. You can't remake the time you wasted.
You can't. Yeah. And I was actually just reflecting, because I know we were talking on the weekend, like a lot of people, like their kids aren't as close with the dad. Like I'm fortunate that at this point, like my son's pretty much just as close with me as he is with his mom. Amazing. Which I don't think is that common. And I kind of took that a little bit for granted. But I don't like missing a bath time. I don't like missing, like I put him to bed every night and all that. I never want to miss any of that. Yep. I had to this weekend for the event, but you know, that makes it tough to like go do those things, like, because if you don't want to miss that stuff.
And that's the first thing you guys opened with at that mastermind event, though, was key. It was not only did you put out financial investment in this, but you also have time investment. People were driving from, some of them 2-3 hours away to come for the day, and then they're leaving at 9 o'clock at night. You put in 14-15 hours into that day. Make sure you're getting something out of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just like to me, like out two dinners in a row, I'm like, who am I?
Right? You miss bath time on 2 consecutive days, and it's like, no, don't ever miss that, right? And don't take that for granted, because that's very important. You're doing all of the things that you're doing for
for my family. That's very cool. So just to jump back into a couple of the specifics of what you were doing, like when did you start investing in real estate in general?
2018, I think.
2018, and you guys were buying what?
Well, we bought our first single family townhouse. It was, as much of a turnkey rental as you're going to get. Bought that. And then the next one was filled with fleas and stripped to the studs, and 3,800 square foot duplex that was completely redone. It was a big duplex. It was looking at it, and the things that I know today I would have done differently, and maybe it would have ended up in a triplex, right?
So did you end up BRRRRing a little portfolio up in the area, like Cornwall?
Absolutely. BRRRRs from, we've got places or had places, Brockville, just outside of Brockville, some of the smaller towns. Now we've kind of gotten rid of all of the high cap, high income. We didn't need that level of income at the time, fortunately, but turned the high caps into a lower cap, larger building to try to retain the wealth, right?
Okay, so you've bought some multifamily, larger multis now?
Yeah, we're into a nice sixplex that's like 6-7 years old. Some on the higher end side of things, it's brick building. It's not going to deteriorate.
Is that Cornwall as well?
That's just outside in a small town, Long Sault.
Okay,
very nice spot.
And what would something like that rent out on a per unit basis?
What should it be rented out at? 1,500. They're 2 bedrooms, self-contained units, right? Heating, cooling. Big high ceilings, clean, bright places. It's again your vision from everybody's master bedroom window, primary suite. Is the St. Lawrence River. So it's really a nice spot to be. In an up and coming developing area. There's a lot of people that want to be in that space.
And are you looking to grow more in Canada, or is it just pure focus on the US right now?
I think the opportunity presents itself. We'll take a look at it.
But you don't need the cash flow. That's not why you're doing it.
Well, not at this point while my wife's still there. We are working towards self-storage and pulling a cash flow.
Because there will be cash flow there, right? Like $250,000 a year or something like that.
That's the cash flow on the property. Absolutely. With the deals that we're looking at and running the numbers on, we're looking for kind of that minimum of $225,000 to $300,000 a year in net income, because we've sliced up the pie, right? We've got 25 to 30 investors on board, or 20 to 30 investors on board. You've got the GP side of things, and you've still got to make it valuable for ourselves for putting this deal together, right? So the cash flow numbers look really good. Obviously the financing numbers with interest rates going up aren't always the best, but they'll come back down. And the nice part in the States, you've talked about it a lot with having the ability to do 30-year terms, right?
Yeah, so you can lock it in 30 years. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a huge advantage in the U.S., locking your mortgage in for 30 years. There are some break penalties, but I believe after 5 years, that won't cost you anything to break it. Right. I don't know the nuance, so obviously check with whoever's providing your mortgage. I give those disclaimers. Just my take. Anyways, okay. Jake, awesome discussion. I think we're out of time. So where do people find you and follow you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, Jake Rosenau. I'm on Facebook, Jake Rosenau, or on Instagram is Rosenau Holdings.
Rosenau Holdings. Okay. Awesome. Well, we'll get some of those links up. If you haven't already, shoot those over to me, and I'll put them in the show notes. And man, a safe drive back to Brockville, and we'll see you next time you're down here, hopefully.
Hey, hope so. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Please make sure to share this episode far and wide. Help it help more people. I really appreciate you tuning in. I'll see you on the next one. There are a lot of people out there talking about the infinite banking strategy and whether or not it makes sense for them. To find out what it's all about and if it's a fit for you, visit controlandcompound.com/Andrew Hines, where my audience can gain exclusive access to books, podcasts, and webinars tailor-made for real estate investors.